Indiana Pacers, buy, sell, or hold. And actually, one note on this, just because of something that happened on Twitter on Wednesday, people complaining, and she doesn't need me to voice support for her because she's a fantastic writer and just one of the most brilliant basketball minds out there. I just feel compelled to say something because I railed against how people need to be okay with us talking about trades. There were people going after Indy Cornrows' Caitlin Cooper, frequent guest, friend of the podcast, because like she wasn't being critical enough of the front office or talking enough about trades. The day after I saw her publish a podcast with Bleacher Report's Jake Fisher so that they could talk about trades in the future of the franchise. He has come on this podcast, talked, I would say very honestly, about what the front office has done and the problems with the roster. I know I went on an all basketball consumption matters rant last time, but like, don't try and, from the bottom of my heart, to people who think that they can dictate the way that people enjoy covering the league or taking in the league and think that it's up to you to tell them how to do their job. From the bottom of my heart, fuck you. Like, fuck you. And this is not just the Caitlin Cooper thing. Like Jeff Garcia going after Mina Kimes and her talking about football. One of the smartest football minds out there, analysts. Never mind that Jeff Garcia shouldn't be allowed to write shit down on Instagram because he's never been a writer, as far as I know. But like, there's no reason to attack these people. And just because Caitlin Cooper is so good at her job, she does not need me to say anything. But she tweeted, she's going on a social media hiatus. Like, from the bottom of my heart, who people think that they get to dictate the way people consume or cover the league, like, just go fuck off. Like, this is just like so beyond and out of control. People just suck. And I don't even think I'm talking to people who listen to this podcast, because if you're still listening to this podcast, this specific pod, you're not going to fall under that umbrella. But this just bothers me. When did it become like, or I guess it's always been like this, and it's definitely worse for women in sports. I totally understand that. But just like, man, I fucking hate these people. It made me so angry to see just stuff like that happening all the time. And I just feel compelled to say it mostly because, one, Caitlin Cooper is the GOAT. I'm talking about like someone who knows the game, can still talk about trades and the mechanisms of the front office, but then also really write. And I mean, really fucking write. She's a great writer. To see people think like they can tell her how to cover the league or that her work doesn't matter, like someone at that level is honestly like grotesque for this industry, and is just a sad commendation on what people think they have a right to do or say or what they know about the game. And just the timing of it was terrible because she had a podcast with trade rumor connoisseur Jake Fisher. So just wanted to give a quick shout out of fuck you to those people specifically, not just towards Caitlin Cooper, but who think like that in general. And I love just so many different elements of the way the NBA can be covered, whether it's really deep X's and O's or just more general themes from takeaways of the game. If it's Melo getting fans kicked out of the Sixers game on Thursday night because fans tend to be fucking tool bags and think that they can talk shit to players when they bought a ticket. I'm just like, there's room for everything. And that really bothered me, among other things in particular. So look, you were looking, where was that rant at the beginning of the podcast?
What's that timestamp? What are we timestamping that?
What is the title? You are the official, you have to write the line for that.
So I have something I'm going to say, and it's that I think social media might be bad, Dan. I think it might be bad. It might not be a good thing. So you're not going to hear me push back on any of that. I think I don't know. Maybe you should have Caitlin on and ask her at some point, like, if anyone's ever said anything to her face, like in a human interaction that was negative about what she does professionally, because I agree, like she's the person I point to all the time when I want to tell people, like, here's how you should break down a play, or here's how you should look at what's happening on the court. I bet no one's ever said anything bad to her up front. But yeah, on social media, because it's a horrible cesspool of toxic just awfulness, that happens. So yeah, I don't blame her for I've taken kind of a permanent hiatus from social media.
Follow GT_Hughes.
Get at me. I might check it like next month or something accidentally, or I might forget to turn notifications off on my phone
accidentally.
You want to talk about the Pacers?
Yeah, not these keyboard dipshit warriors. So the Pacers, buy, sell, or hold?
I think they're a seller. I think even though Herb Simon kind of tried to unring that bell pretty shortly after, I think it was Shams who had it, that they're looking at a rebuild. I forget the verbiage. But they're sellers. I think, I still think you try to move Turner. Hopefully you get a first or, something for that. I think I'm fine with moving. I'm fine with like blowing it up.
If they don't get a first for moving Myles Turner, I'm just going to say they probably shouldn't move Myles Turner.
Yeah, you might want to wait on that one. Or like the equivalent. I don't know what other players are out there that they could get. I think you might try to move Warren, even though he's hitting free agency. I think Lamb is the same way. That's some nice expiring money. LeVert, for sure. I'm out on LeVert. So I think it's just how do you want to do it, right? Do you want to just stockpile picks? That doesn't seem very Pacers, even if they're making a little pivot away from what they normally do. I just think you got to come out of this deadline, hopefully with like 3 new first round picks and some good young players. Cause it's not like the Pacers, it's not like any of the guys the Pacers are trying to move, with the possible exception of LeVert, and just barely, or on bad deals. So like maybe the urgency is not there, but that also just means you should be able to get good value back. If you wanted to get a more expensive guy, you could become a salary dumping ground if you want to take a real hard turn into the rebuild. Like, yeah, we'll take Tobias Harris and like a whole mess of draft equity or whatever. If you wanted to, I don't know, just they need to be sellers. I think it's kind of Portlandy in a worse way, and it's kind of gotten stale. I just think they've got the guys that if they want to really just fast track a rebuild, you can get a bunch of firsts for like several guys on this roster.
I'm team sell as well. I'm definitely higher. LeVert would be one of the players I would move, but I'm definitely higher on him than you are. I always view someone who can do stuff off the dribble effectively, and he's done that over the past 2 months, basically shooting 38% on off the dribble threes, averaging over 20 points per game. Definitely has his issues and could be a tight off ball fit if he's playing alongside another ball dominant star. I don't think him at 18 plus million next year. I don't care. Maybe his salary is lower than that from there on, or if he's playing well, you won't have an issue paying him, especially if he stays healthy. But he's not the answer for the Pacers, because I do agree that they need to pivot. Now, that said, I don't know what to do with Warren. I just feel like at this point, he's got to be so cheap in free agency. You might as well hold on to him because the idea of him helps. Don't move Sabonis. He is so central to an offense that doesn't have a higher end point of attack guy like all NBA Victor Oladipo. And that's not Malcolm Brogdon. It's not Caris LeVert. I just wouldn't, you'd have to be blown away. And I think and I don't mean this as an insult, he's so difficult to fit in mid-season because he needs to be a prominent part of your offensive ecosystem, where Myles Turner is you might not be happy about it, but dot the arc, play defense, and maybe, attack some open spaces. You don't need to run stuff through him. And Sabonis is at his best when you can run stuff through him. And Brogdon can't be traded, but I'm keeping Warren. I'm keeping Sabonis. Brogdon I'm keeping Duarte, obviously. I'm keeping Turner. I'm revisiting it in the summer. Whatever offers are out there now will still be there, because unless you just have a great prognosis for this injury, I think his value is only going to be hurt by it, because there might be teams that are like, well, foot injury on a big man, will he be available for the postseason? And so you only move him if you're desperate to move him, which I don't think you need to be desperate to move him. Move Justin Holiday, move Torrey Craig, sign O'Shea Brissett to a supermax contract, because I freaking love that guy. Don't move O'Shea Brissett unless you're blown away by an offer. So that's what I am looking at for them. They're sellers, but I'm not of the mind, one, because you can't move Brogdon. And I would look at moving him over the summer too. I do find it funny that when the initial report came out that the Pacers were open to a rebuild, and I think it was Shams or someone else used the justification that Herb Simon is more open to a rebuild at age 37. And it's like, well, is Herb Simon planning on being around for the end of this rebuild then? Why would he get older and then be more open to a rebuild? So I don't think they're going to go the full Monty that direction, and I don't think that they need to, but there definitely needs to be some material shakeup here, because they are the team. Is there another team that you can't predict what you're going to see from them on a game-to-game basis? I don't even understand the Pacers this season. On my big theory with no basis behind it, other than reading between the lines of earlier post-game interviews, I just feel like everyone hates Rick Carlisle, maybe, in that locker room. Is that what's happening?
See, that would kind of square with what you heard about the end of his tenure in Dallas. I think just on Sabonis, first of all, he's made twice as many All-Star games as Andrew Wiggins, which is a joke. That's ridiculous. I think I just view Sabonis as one of those specific, everything. He's a ceiling setter, and the ceiling with Sabonis, even though he's on a good contract for what he does, but in a major role, I feel like Sabonis just puts he adds a lot, but he puts significant constraints on how good your team can be. And he has every opportunity to just prove this wrong, but it just feels like the big guy that has to have that has to, but I don't know if has to is too strong of a phrase, but like has the ball a ton and is like your fulcrum, but is not a good defensive player and is not a high volume stretch guy. It's just, I don't know how good. It's a Vucevic thing. That's the comp to me, and I thought of Vucevic as a guy that just was a ceiling setter too. So I would, if you're serious about a rebuild, like a rebuild, I think Sabonis is someone you move because I think your return would be pretty good on him. And I guess I just don't think Sabonis is as good as most other people seem to, in terms of like, I'm trying to win a championship at the end of this rebuild. At some point, I don't feel like Sabonis is a guy that in this role helps you get there as much as, you know, let's start over. So that's the only thing. Who's the most likely guy to move, do you think?
That's a great question. I'm just going to say LeVert because I do think they'll do Justin Holiday might actually just be the answer, but I'm going to say LeVert.
I think Holiday's contract is almost like he's a 3-and-D wing that makes $6 million. Like I want to keep him whether I'm rebuilding or I mean, his age is not a rebuild age, but I'll go LeVert too. I just don't feel like it doesn't make sense there anymore for him. I think if you can get value, you do. And it's like the half measure if you really want to balk at a Turner or Sabonis deal.
I also think that you do need to leave this trade deadline getting a future first round pick. You probably come close to getting one for LeVert. And just with the Turner injury, I would have said him if not for the injury. And with Holiday, you're not, like you said, he could be a part of whatever. And I guess technically so could LeVert be, but it's easier to move LeVert when he's been playing well for the most part over the past 2 months. And when you do need to do something significant, you're not getting a first round pick for Justin Holiday. You're more likely to get one for LeVert.
Yep, that's fair.